Hello, my name is Tony Beers, and this is Movie Grades.
And just like the movies, we play out our last scene.
Hello everybody, Tony Beers here again, and in this episode of Movie Grades I'm going to be talking about The Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Now this movie is a reboot slash remake of the Planet of the Apes franchise, and the original Planet of the Apes I consider to be one of the best movies ever made. And I'm one of very few people who actually like the Tim Burton remake. In this movie, James Franco plays a scientist who is developing a cure for Alzheimer's. The cure is tested on apes, and an incident happens at the lab, and James Franco has to take a chimpanzee named Caesar home. As a result of testing on apes, Caesar turns out to be very intelligent. An incident occurs, and Caesar is taken away to an ape sanctuary, where he is mistreated. When there, Caesar gathers other apes together to rise up against the humans who have mistreated him. Now, as I usually do in my movie reviews, I want to first talk about the bad. And the thing is, there isn't anything really bad about this movie. I was really looking for something to complain about, and there's really nothing to complain about. Little minor nitpicky things I could say is that there are a few scenes where there's fractions of a second where the apes don't look totally real, where they do look very CGI, but that's a very small amount of the movie that they don't look totally 100% real. Most of the time they look fantastic. They look very realistic. Another minor thing that is kind of disappointing to me personally as a fan is that I would have liked to have seen one of the apes use a gun in this movie, which they don't. Minor spoiler, they don't use guns in this movie, which I would have loved to have seen. Maybe in the sequel. Now let's move on to the good. I mean, everything else in this movie is good. Like I said, there wasn't much of anything bad about the whole movie. Okay, as far as the acting goes, the best actor in this movie is Andy Serkis, who is probably best known as Gollum in The Lord of the Rings and King Kong in King Kong. He is probably the best physical actor in Hollywood today. The acting he does is kind of like miming, because in this movie, he conveys so much without saying anything. Of course, this is with the help of some of the CGI animators, but still, his performance, you know exactly what he is thinking without having to say a single word. Probably the next best performance in this movie comes from John Lithgow, who plays James Franco's father, who is dealing with Alzheimer's, and it's a very touching performance. James Franco is also very good in this. He plays a scientist with good intentions. His character is very compassionate, and James Franco pulls that off very well. And then we have Freida Pinto, and on top of being drop-dead gorgeous in this movie, she's a pretty good actress as well. She plays a veterinarian who later becomes James Franco's love interest, and she does a very good job. As for the story is excellent. It's basically a retelling of Escape from the Planet of the Apes, where Caesar was born, and Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, where Caesar led an ape rebellion. Now the special effects in this movie is amazing, particularly the CGI apes. This is probably the best CGI I've seen in a very long time. I had the same feeling watching this movie as I did watching Jurassic Park for the first time, because the apes in this movie look that realistic. It's as if they just filmed real apes. So that just shows how great the CGI is in this movie. As far as the action goes, It's really great. Most of the action happens towards the end of the movie, and the climactic battle is really amazing. Like I said before, my only minor problem is I would really like to see one of the apes like pick up a shotgun and start shooting people. Unfortunately that didn't happen, but I'm hoping that they'll do that in the sequel. One thing that I love that they did with this movie is they have a ton of references to the original. One thing that they did is that the very opening of this movie is very similar to the cornfield scene in the original. One of the apes is named Bright Eyes, which is the name given to Charlton Heston by Dr. Zira in the original movie. There's one brief shot of Caesar playing with the Statue of Liberty toy, which I thought was very funny. There's a part in the movie where Caesar is being sprayed with a fire hose, just as Charlton Heston was in the original. There's one point in the movie where one of the characters is even watching a Charlton Heston movie. And of course, I'm very happy to see that we get that so very famous line from Charlton Heston, "Get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape." I love that, and when I saw that in the theater, I was so satisfied when I saw that. Now let me tell you a real quick funny story before I end this review. I remember watching the Tim Burton remake in the theater with one of my friends, and it comes to this scene where it's almost the end of the movie, and Marky Mark kisses Ari, the female chimp, and I look over at my friend and he's making this kind of face, like ew, like that, and I didn't understand why he was doing it, so I asked him, "What's wrong? You know, why are you making that face?" And he says, "That was gross. I don't want to see them kiss. That's bestiality." And I said to him, "You do realize that this is a movie, and that's not really a chimp that he's kissing, that's Helena Bonham Carter in makeup?" And it just made me laugh to hear him say that, ew, gross, it's not really a man and monkey kissing, don't worry about it. I don't know, I just thought it was funny. Anyway, back to Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I heard this movie compared to Frankenstein, which is a great analogy, only that James Franco is not insane in this movie. Overall, this is a great movie. I might actually have to make this my favorite movie of this summer. I was really fighting with myself because I'm such a comic book fan that I really wanted a comic book movie like Captain America or X-Men First Class to be my favorite movie this summer, but I have to say they're not. That I really like this movie more. But they did make Planet of the Apes comic books, so I don't know, I guess you could count this movie as a comic book movie, but even though it's not really. But like I said, this is probably the best movie of the summer for me. Now, I don't do this very often, but this movie is so good that I'm giving it an A-. Now, the reason why I'm not giving it an A or an A+ is because it's not really the type of movie that I would watch over and over again. It's more likely that I would watch Captain America more often than I would watch this movie. Even though I like this movie better, if that makes any sense. I would have to say that Captain America is more fun, but this movie is more of a satisfying experience. Again, if that makes any sense. So that was my review for Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Go watch it. I'd really love to see a sequel from this movie, and it's really great. Possibly the best movie of this year. Well, I'll have to find out, but it's definitely up there in the running. And that's it. Rise of the Planet of the Apes, I give an A-. My name is Tony Beers, and I'll see you next time.